Hi friends, it's Janine Richards from Q101. Welcome to The Tour Life. Grab your all-access pass and join me behind the scenes of the music industry. Together, we'll discover how to live happier and healthier lives doing what we love. Today's guest is a former member of the United States Secret Service, the COO of Silver Spear Security, LLC, a private security firm, and the security director for the band Shinedown and Smith & Myers. In this episode, we discuss what it was like to have his tour shut down because of coronavirus in March 2020, what it was like to be out touring during the pandemic, the vital role of COVID compliance officers and training, as well as the benefits of starting a podcast in order to keep learning and growing. Here is my conversation with fellow podcaster, John Guarnieri. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I know you've been up to some really cool stuff lately and some difficult stuff because you actually got to go out on the road. So I definitely want to talk about that. I want to talk about your podcast that you have, which is really cool. But could you start by just giving us like a quick story about how you got into the industry and then also where you were when COVID hit and then what you've been up to since?
Yes. So I graduated from a military college called Norwich University, the Corps Cadets program in the Navy in Norwich. And that was in 2008. In 2008, well, the year prior, I put my application in for the Secret Service. And it took about a year to kind of pass all the background checks, polygraphs, psych evals, fitness. They overturned every stone, every neighbor, every CCE class I went to. They talked to every classmate. And so I did that. I did that until 2014 under the Obama administration. And at that point, the year prior, 2013, I met my current CEO now, Chris Wildman. And we kind of talked. And I was one of those things where that last campaign with Obama in 2000, his last campaign would have been 2012, I believe. Yeah, I was home 31 days that year. And people always, well, you're on the road now and stuff. But I'm like, it's different because you fly around C-17s or C-5s with the limousines and all the packages. You don't know what city you're waking in. There's times where I would spend B markets, C market, D markets campaigning with different people and Obama, Mitt Romney at the time. And I kind of got burnt out by the idea of, I love the security work, but I didn't love the idea of that. Not actually work for myself, but working and doing what I want to do in the security field. And so when I met my CEO, I'm like, hey, when I get burnt out or feel the urge to kind of, hey, I need a transition in my life, I'm going to reach out to you. Maybe we can do something. So we did that in 2014. And that's where Silver Spear Security kind of reborn itself after all that. And we've been doing it ever since. And part of the program, the reason why I went private to the Silver Spear Security stuff is I was married to the time, no kids. Divorce wasn't messy or anything like that, but the other one was life thing where you're kind of like, I wish there was something that I could do to kind of clear my head, but not lose sight of what I love doing, which is security and protection. And so up until February 23rd of 20, everything was going great. And I just got off the Rock Legends cruise with doing security for Roger Daltrey. And then I flew out with my office, my CEO, to California. Spent 2 weeks meeting promoters and signing contracts for new festivals we're doing, like Hua Chica and stuff like that. And then the day we leave out of San Fran, we start getting alerts from a friend and saying, and then finally enough, the airport, CNN, San Fran is now being shut down. The Rams were taking you off. We're like, what? Like, you hear about COVID a couple months prior, December, you're like, no, it's not going to make it here. Like that false bravado. We're bulletproof. And we land back in Florida. And sure enough, we're like, weird. I wonder, it must have had about outbreak. Well, then the NBA shuts down. And I'm like, well, it's the NBA. Like, some of those athletes, NHL gets affected by this, then I'm going to take this really seriously because those guys, those hockey players and girls too, like they're a different breed. Fair enough. Literally that next day, anything else postpones or cancels or stops the season. They like start kind of going, man, what is going on? And surely enough, we had events planned in Vegas and California and Florida, and stuff starts getting canceling and start kind of learning that, man, this is a real thing. I guess at the time, I didn't realize that a year later, here we are, our industry is still picking up the remnants of what once was before. And it's very, it took about 6 months to kind of get over that mental kind of like, what the hell's going on, to now it's like, well, if you don't get better than you were before, like, that's on you. And I've used this time to kind of do that.
It's crazy to really kind of just sit back and like re-picture and recollect on everything that happened, because you're right, it's been a year. Yeah, almost a year. And it's just like a lot of the stopping and figuring out kind of what you were doing at that moment and what you were going to do with your free time, and then so that you could actually come out of this better, is something that you've definitely been living, right?
Yeah, it's again, like you and most people, I was kind of not worried that I couldn't do what I love. I just do a different aspect of it would be changing. Until in March of last year, I started my own podcast, Spear Talk, which started out of boredom and just my urge to learn about different topics like martial arts, or human trafficking, or domestic abuse, or anything I can kind of wrap my head around, whether it's mental health or experts on isolation and fear and stuff like that. And now I'm on streaming services. I've had people approach me for sponsorships. I'm about to launch a new bird. And it's been really fun because I love the idea of continuously learning and talking to different people of all walks of life and how they've kind of, their industry's been affected by COVID. And it's just been really fun. And I've also had the ability to, my company now has started to do events now in Florida again. And I actually spent the equivalent of probably 5-6 weeks on the road this past year, 2.5 on a tour bus, which very, very eerie. The first day you get on the bus, you're kind of like, not many people have done this.
When you told me before we started recording that you actually had been on the road and actually on a tour bus, I was definitely shocked, because I have friends who have done, some like streaming stuff and like remote recording where like it's just the artist and the band, or just whoever the artists are. And then I've heard of, a lot of opportunities in security to, do stuff like take temperatures for when there's like a private event where they're streaming and things like that. But I definitely hadn't actually spoken to someone who was doing anything with an audience. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it was back in September. Started off at the ballparks at that parking lot there, plus stadiums. We did a big drive-in show with Live Nation, like 800 cars or something like that. And it was the first kind of show, I think AGR, Bert Kreitzer, a couple of random stuff like that. But it was our first foray into this, and we didn't know what to expect. And it was with Swiss and Myers, Brent and Zach from the band Shinedown, and we get up there, or they get up there, and so you're so used to like people like clapping and screaming, but now it's honking horns, flashing headlights, and like distance clapping because you're so far away from the barricade with the cars. Which, going into it, COVID wasn't my main concern for the drive-in shows, which was like the first part of the fall. For me, it's more like how we searching these cars for, because now these are literally could all be car bombs. And there's certain protocols now where you just can't, you gotta check trunks. Like, you gotta, if something looks out of place or smells like leaking gasoline, or like there's no one should be bringing in propane cans and all this stuff. And so that was my biggest fear. And luckily enough, obviously you're working with the best of the best security, because not many people are working. So when we did Philly and another A market, I'm not sure, maybe Atlanta, maybe, I do have a security person, which normally it's a handful, but it was all the people that aren't working. And no, the security's been great, all the venues. The outdoor amphitheater driving stuff was a little weird. And then this past December, yeah, spent 2.5 weeks on a tour bus. And it was a mixture of 2 or 3 kind of There are 2 drive-in shows, 2 or 3 of those pod shows with, you have the big production stage, but now you have up to 4 to 6 people in these little glass hut out there in the crowd now. And Orlando has a great setup at the Dr. Phillips Center, and it was just great. Look, it looked totally pro. Yes, it's very weird, but at least you could see families or friends sitting together, clapping. You get loud, you can hear people singing, but you still have the protocols of temperature checks and social distancing, certain egress routes where you have to follow certain paths to kind of go to merch or grab beer, just to kind of cut down on like mass traffic in certain areas. But it's been great. And then we did 4 or 5 shows inside, and then we did a show in Alabama at the Toll Kitchen. And Alabama is one of the states where there's really no, I'm not going to say there's no COVID restrictions. There is, but they're open. And for our show, we're going to cap this at 50% regardless. And getting them to like understand, like, hey, I still have to advance the show like I normally would. With COVID, it's just an added step now. We want temperature checks. We want stations for people to wash their hands. We want all this extra EMP stuff here, or just different protocols in place. We want to make sure we not only keep this band and crew safe, but to care about the people too, because you don't know who they're going home to. And the other thing too, no one's forcing people to go to these shows. And so once you got over that mental hurdle of, we're going to do everything we can, let's make sure whatever we can do as a crew to make sure the band does the best show they can for the people here. And that first show inside, you're kind of like, man, it kind of hit me, not in an emotional way, but more of, I'm so grateful of what I do and that I have a job out here, but how many people are just as grateful and should be out here aren't. And that's kind of where it's like, man, this last year has just been a blur.
Wow. I mean, and I had heard of the pods. I have some friends who did drive-ins and things like that. And up here in Chicago, by the Shut Aquarium, they made like an outdoor theater at like in the parking lot. And you know, it's interesting that you bring up all the extra security concerns, because you're letting people come in with whatever the hell they want, basically. I mean, even just at festivals, whenever people drive, you know, into like a camping festival, that's a lot of security concerns. But now you're looking at, you know, just small shows that you have a smaller amount of people actually handling everything. So that's really cool. The pods, I thought that was really awesome too. And those are interesting, because I have seen photos of those and the different issues that come up going state to state. Because I think, you know, in Europe where you're going country to country and each country has, you know, their own rules, their own language, stuff like that. That's kind of similar to what you're seeing now, huh? Because of the variety of carrying and standards across the country.
It is. You even noticed in Florida, we do a show. We did 2 nights in St. Pete, and then we do a show in Fort Myers, or a show in Tampa, or a show in Delray Beach, and same state, totally different city regulations. And so it's very, it's crazy. It's like, from like the Alabama show, I love talking about this because everyone's kind of like, what was that show like? I'm like, great crowd. I think some of the issues we noticed in these shows, some people are so pent up for live music that I thought the only issues we really had were people that are over intoxicated and just, I'm not going to say aggressive, but just, well, maybe I will. You could sense people had like this urgency about them, the fans, that they miss it so much they don't know how to react to the actual artist performing 10 feet away from them now. But that show, like, you have to get law enforcement and make sure if there are people turned away at the door, I need the paperwork on them and stuff like that. But the mayor's office, the second in charge, has been coming to the show, to Soul Kitchen, watches, does the security meeting, meets the crew, myself, or whoever's counterpart me, because I was TMing too. And then they watch the show, and at the end of the night, they sign off on it. If there's any issue, they go direct to the mayor's office or the touring party. But it's just kind of different now how you have to worry about. It's a great problem to have, but you're working with mayor's offices now, and governor and stuff to sign off on shows. And if you put the time in, the work, and the proper advance, it's all doable. I think people want to work together and make it safe as they can for everyone.
That's so interesting that you're able to watch kind of how people are starting to handle this. And when the rule book isn't really written yet, yeah, I mean, that's just a really cool perspective that I think you're getting to see. So what are some of the interesting things that have come up that you didn't expect?
So one of the things, these guys, Smith and Myers, they have a really loyal following with their fans and stuff, but kind of mentioned earlier, this emotional connection to missing live music for the year or so. And so many people I would see it doesn't matter what market you're in outside of Russia, they might be at the show. That I don't know where they get their money, but that's a different subject. But you kind of, this emotional release of people, whether it's families or people that haven't seen each other in the last year, they're usually in the front row together. And just kind of seeing that connection, it kind of hits you because it's like you don't realize how powerful music really is, or the entertainment industry. And again, I don't take it for granted. So there's definitely that emotional aspect of it. And the other thing too, I know is we work with a great crew. And for the Smith and Myers, it's myself, Chris Lightcap, Steve Hupkowitz, and Ken Sinkler, literally 4 of us. And what we like the advancing out, it's like I'll always be direct with the band guys, saying, hey, this is what we're doing with management stuff. But it's the crew guys, we'd all talk to each other and just be kind of like, okay, what are our concerns? Okay, we do rapid testing before. If one of us feeling sick, how do we get isolated on the bus to protect other people? And it's like the teamwork, which has always been there. I just never really, I think I just didn't appreciate it as enough. And it kind of blew me away, like how everyone kind of came together, kind of really stepped up into different positions to make this work, where, yes, keep ourselves safe, the band and whoever, and the bus driver, but also the fans. And it's unfortunate it takes an event like COVID to get people to think and act that way. And I'm not saying I never thought that way before. I'm forever grateful, and I don't take anything for granted, but it kind of makes you appreciate the whole thing more so that, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of weird. And when this whole thing started, entertainment industry was the first one to kind of be shut down. And right now it's kind of like the last thing to come back. And hopefully some stuff gets done in Congress and whatever. But yeah, it's been interesting. I am grateful that I did get up there on the road for 2 weeks to kind of see this and just be a part of that.
Yeah, that emotional aspect. I mean, you know, this is kind of off topic, but I've been doing Peloton classes just like on an elliptical that I have because my bike's taking like 10 weeks to arrive, but that's beside the point. But anyway, there's these instructors that will do these classes where they'll like kind of take you through like a show, or like they'll pick like an artist and they'll play like a bunch of music from that artist, or they'll do like an experience where it's like they'll take you through a party and you go floor to floor and they kind of just like narrate through it. And it really does. It brings you back kind of to like the memories that you had of actually going to see live music. And so that kind of, it's like that's always there. And it gets very emotional. So I can only imagine finally getting the opportunity to be there. And like you said, when you have less people at the actual show, it becomes so much more personal, right?
I think every song, everyone kind of latches on to every song. Like normally, a band will have 2 or 3 songs that, they just draw to that, whatever. But it seemed like every song they did, like there's that release that these people needed to hear. And it was great to be part of it. It's fun, actually, kind of sidesteps. You mentioned Peloton. Joe Biden, the president, they're elected and stuff like that. They ride Pelotons. Well, because of the way the Peloton is set up with the video camera and recording and the whatever, they actually have to do a special one for the White House because they can't record conversations and do videos inside where they're going to put that bike.
That's so cool.
Which I'm laughing because that technology is so mind-blowing. And yeah, it's kind of cool, kind of a side kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's actually super interesting. Oh, man. So you mentioned that you are a COVID compliance officer. So I noticed pretty quickly into, I don't know, it was probably like spring, summer, where people were just like, that was the thing to do. Like, because everybody knew you were going to need a COVID compliance officer on the road with you moving forward. So could you tell me a little bit about kind of the class that you took, what you thought of it, how it actually applied to some of the things that you've been up to?
Yes. So I went through a company in California. It was like a 4-hour class. It had a registered RN nurse and someone from a production company that did like VMAs and stuff. I took it more to kind of, hey, the training was there and I'm going to take it or whatever. I want to learn. I don't know what COVID is outside the media or whatever bullshit rabbit hole you want to go into online, what COVID is. And so a lot of stuff I did before, but it was very interesting because you don't realize that position has to be valued as the same as the costume designer or the site security or the team leader here or the director. And it's such a vital part of what's moving forward now. And you can see now with certain stuff, like I know Tom Cruise got flack recently because he lost it on people. He brought in these COVID robots that were testing people. And it's something that's part of our industry, I think, moving forward for the next year or so, even with the vaccines. And for me to kind of understand that, okay, I get the face mask, I get the social distancing, I get the washing of hands, but how does that relate to what we're going to have to do? And sure enough, advanced these shows and stuff, and now I know like the spacing or where signage should go, where washing station should go, how to do a proper temperature check, what are the protocols in place for if you have a temperature hit. Okay, isolate this person, wait 15 minutes. Who else they come to the show with? So there's stuff like that where you're kind of like, okay, so and work, but if you put the time in to learn this and kind of figure out how to build if you selfishly want to build your resume, why wouldn't you do that to get better, to understand the field you work in? It's one of those things too where it's like, I know a lot of people did it, and I think more people should do it just to kind of understand what you're going to be working in moving forward. And we actually, our production manager, Charlie, and a bunch of us, once they found out I did it, we kind of put out the whole Shinedown campaign, get this COVID compliance certificate, get the training, get the practice, understand kind of what this virus is and how it's affecting us, and how we're going to adapt moving forward. Everyone got it done. And we're all kind of just powwowing about what we could do to help the touring side of it on our side, but in the industry as well. And it's great. Like the part of the issue is I love training. It's very hands-on with role players and like even now you have to do CPR through training through Zoom. And it's like, dude, like you can't. Okay, I get it. But with COVID, everything's so socially distanced that this training, while vital, I wish we could kind of do a thing where you and I are coming through a temperature check and one of us has to hit on the temperature. How do we react to it? And I wish that aspect of the training you could do, but obviously because of COVID, you can't. But it's great. I'll be curious to see where it does moving forward, but it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps to have that education because like you said, there's a lot of bullshit rabbit holes that you could fall head first into. And that's when conflict starts. That's when people can't get on the same page. That's when you can't prioritize properly. So I think if everybody is aware of the same science-backed information and everybody understands the procedure, right? You don't end up like in The Office where Dwight's like, what's the procedure? Have you seen that episode? Because of the fire? So yeah, and I think that's really important because, the music industry has been called a pirate ship by a lot of people, and people have been able to kind of, do their own thing and figure it out as they go. But when you get into something where now you're dealing with politics and you're dealing with regulations that are beyond anything you've ever seen, it's really important to have that education and really be open to growing that knowledge base that you maybe never really prioritized before.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there was that meme that went around after the announcement of the vaccine where it's like, hey, if you let the touring industry dole out this vaccine, they'll figure out the right procedure to get this done within before a loadout. And it was kind of funny. It's kind of endearing too that the people that actually do the crew and stuff, like I'm sure they can figure it out. But no, you're right. There's a lot to it, and it'll be interesting. It's funny because you kind of think of, if looking at it now, say the summer, there's some states that probably still won't be, like California right now. I don't know what the deal is. And then you have New York City with Broadway, and they're talking maybe August 1st. And it's like, but then you go to Alabama or Wyoming or Iowa, and it's like, oh yeah, we're ready to go. Come May, we'll do 10,000 person festivals, or we'll do socially distance. But again, state regulations, all this other stuff, you're kind of, that's where the tricky part's going to be when it comes to routing these shows and tours, because everything can't be a slide date. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely brings up the whole aspect of the people in the industry having that responsibility to protect the industry on their own, right? Because, when the government doesn't know what the hell they're doing, it's the burden goes on to the people who are experiencing it, which is literally what has happened this entire year. Nobody wanted to tell anybody what to do, so they put it on you personally. You get to decide, do you wear a mask? You get to decide, do you go out to eat at a restaurant? You get to decide, do you go to a movie theater, right? And unfortunately, that's kind of what's happening with the industry too. It's like, because the regulations are so all over the place, it's really going to be up to us to understand what the best practices are and to go through the motions and to go through all of the experiences and collect a best practices book, basically, that we can all kind of work off of. Is there anything that you recommend as far as people collaborating to make this thing happen? Have you heard of people already working on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of different promoters, and you can obviously assume who the promoters are, where they're trying to figure out what is the best way to kind of create these shows that might not be an amphitheater per se, but just big pieces of land or something where you're kind of like almost making destination festivals where you have these big blocks of land, and you have to come up with a creative way to how these different bands, like like the sports teams, they did like the bubble with COVID. Well, if you have a central location where the crew is tested like that, or they're in quarantine for 2 weeks and they do everything in place to kind of do whatever, then you kind of create like this bubble in the sense of the production side of it. And then how do you get creative with not only the bands that come in there, with testing and stuff, you kind of get away with it. But as you bring in the fans and the crowd, that's where the dynamic kind of changes, and you have to kind of be ready for anything to really happen. It's going to take a lot of creative people to kind of figure out how to do it. And here's the thing too, once you solve this, what's the next crisis that can affect the industry? I don't think it's a bad thing to start thinking of worst case scenarios for other situations where, hey, another pandemic happens. What do we have in place right now that we can do these safely? Is it the drive-in shows? Is it these pods? Does more science help? Obviously, yes. But yeah, I think what happened, it caught everyone by surprise, every industry. It just so happens this industry that we're in was the one that took the brunt of it, and it's the last one to kind of be resuscitated from it.
That completely reminded me of the Fire Festival. Remember that?
That seems like a decade ago. Like, there's Ja Rule right now. You feel the hell, Beth?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, what would you do if you are advancing a show and then you find out that Ja Rule's in charge?
At this point, I don't think people would care. Here's the irony with that too. And I feel bad for the production people. I do some people I don't care about the drama of it, but you had these mega rich people that spent an absurd amount of money for something they had no idea what to pay for. They just sent the money over. And their sense of, and at the time, it's funny because we all watched the documentaries, you laughed, but they were bitching about sandwiches or their living conditions, which they paid for, which weren't there. But then you kind of step back and you're kind of like, man, a pandemic literally did that to the entire world. And I don't know. It's just, for me, I'm kind of like, I don't care about those people that bought those tickets, and they don't. I don't know. Like for me, I thought it was kind of funny. It's kind of like, man, like these people are crying about their bologna sandwiches and their flies over their tents, but little do we know, we almost have a year and a half to shut down any entertainment. And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of, I think it was an omen more for, hey, at least Naruto tries.
Oh man. And but it is interesting though, because it seems that because that was allowed to happen, and it was able to happen, I mean, to basically just kind of from the documentaries that I watched, it seemed like there wasn't any real planning happening. And a lot of people got screwed, including crew and obviously the entire island. Right. I mean, everybody who worked on the island got screwed. And I think that also says a lot about how easy it is to think that you can do something, get in over your head, and then completely fuck up. No,
it's mind blowing. I know, as you do. I know a lot of promoters, Live Nation, AG, C3. It's like, I know for a fact, gun to my head, I would trust any one of those top production people to not let that happen at a show I was going to, because I would have faith that their work speaks for themselves. And them just kind of, like that just shows before COVID, put the show on. Fuck these people. We don't care about them. We'll go Billy McFarland will go to jail. We'll make 2 documentaries. Everyone will go happy. We'll find some water. And then now you're kind of like, my biggest issue with this whole thing is, yes, do I believe this industry can solve what's going on? Can they help get themselves back to where we were before, or a new us? At least give us the keys to do it. And that's where I'm kind of like, yes, you want to do it, but let us do it. Let us put plans together. Let us put ideas together. Let tours work together, and promoters to kind of, hey, Congress, this is what we plan to do it for our state. We're going to work with this state to build something. This state, I mean, that hive mentality would be very beneficial to everyone if they just, but here's the thing, the queen bee, whoever that is, government, Fauci, or whoever has to say, hey, let's let them design and do these shows again. Let them open up the floodgates, let everyone start getting creative.
Yeah, I think a lot of it may have to do with just not having representation in government, which, I mean, the Red Alert Restart campaign that was happening, I mean, they teamed up with Amy Klobuchar and
Michael Strickland,
yeah, and and it passed, which I mean is huge because nobody had ever thought of it. I mean, everybody's just kind of, they're like, oh, shows aren't happening, whatever. But it's like, no, it's literally tearing apart an entire industry that employs millions of people. And to finally see that like someone actually like cared a little bit, it's kind of nice. But I think we need to kind of ride that wave and continue to put, I mean, there's lobbyists for every industry. Like, why isn't there a bigger footprint when it comes to actually fighting for the industry? I think a lot of it may have to do with the fact that a lot of people are kind of in their own pods, like they're in their own silos, and it's difficult to work together. But is there something that you're seeing that maybe we could work toward in order to, work together and actually make something happen?
Yeah, I don't know. It's all, I want people to work together. I want people to be successful. And here's the thing, whenever there's a, knock on wood, a mass shooting, or like a Manchester bombing, or like Vegas or Bataclan, or Hurricane Katrina, or Joplin tornadoes, the first thing that people do is band together. They put a concert on with celebrities and musicians to raise money for the victims, which I'm all for. Well, when our industry is affected, who is the one putting on the concert for our industry? And we can't even do it ourselves, which I know the bands would want to do and everything, because I know some bands did some really cool stuff with merch to their crew, and which is great, but you can't even let them do that to help their own industry. And so that for me, it took me the longest time to kind of get over that kind of, not anger, but more like who's going to do this for us? And for people like Michael Strickland to do that, and it's pretty cool that I think people do care. And I think it's about time they finally had that voice or that pedestal up in Congress to be like, hey, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that helps everyone. It should be in your best interest to kind of help them get back on their feet, or at least enable these people, men and women, to start going back to work.
Yeah, I find it funny, like, that especially politicians, they're always so quick to, I mean, I just remember Obama, he like always, like all the musicians were like his friend, So I'm sure every politician and pretty much any person, you'd have to be pretty like not into music in order to like not care. But I feel like everybody would be willing to support the people who put on music, who put on shows. And I'm talking across the entertainment industry, including Broadway and everything. And I think it really is more about putting it out there and being like, hey, like we are people, that these things don't just happen on their own. And we need allies to help us. And we do need to plan ahead, which is something that I found so interesting that you said when you mentioned being more forward thinking when it comes to planning for other disasters or other setbacks that could happen in the industry.
Yeah, it's one where I take notes normally for every show, regardless, just different stuff or whatever. But I found myself the last year kind of really taking notes, like, well, if the cars can park here, the egress route here, and what if you did this in an open field? You don't need the driving aspect, just this type of safe setup. And you kind of get thinking, like, well, like if you did a show on a roof, and then you have, once you build a building, like a hotel balcony, where people are kind of, remember videos back when COVID first did, lead people almost bullshit fake crap they put out, but that concept where you have a concert on a rooftop or a lower spot, but then you have everyone socially distanced up on these balconies or these high-rise type buildings. And I'm just thinking there's some cool stuff that can happen. And again, it's unfortunate we have to think that way, but if COVID-20 happens or some other garbage, then we just can't be idly sitting by for you. And I'm glad it took 6 months with that first drive-in show, and those are great shows. I know all those promoters are doing shows again this spring, as they kind of get ready to open up their outdoor amphitheaters and arenas and stuff like that. But it's being creative will save a lot of lives.
So, John, tell me about your podcast.
So the podcast is called Spirit Talk, and it's geared. And the tagline is very simple: all lowercase, no period. It's a security podcast, and it's basically me. Every guest I have on there, I specifically reached out. I've had no one actually say no to the podcast yet, and whether it's a martial artist or an expert in human trafficking or domestic abuse or wildlife conservation or other tour and security people I know, or authors and actors that portray characters that inspire me to be who I want to be. It's been great. And we set parameters where we don't talk about politics, religion. Obviously, COVID's dominated most of the conversation, but we don't really get political and picking sides, but just talk about how it's affected everyone mentally, physically. Because a lot of people are teachers, whether it's in their dojo or they're actors who can no longer do movie sets, so it's dealing with these different people who all different walks of life have the same mental things of isolation or fear or what the hell's going on that we kind of all relate to. It's about each podcast anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and we just have a ton of fun just talking about not only kind of what I do, but what they do and how it kind of relates to like security. And we've had some awesome stuff, and we've had some guests that a lot of people are shocked I was able to pull off, but it just, again, it's all you know. And if you when I reach out, I'm very sincere. I'm like, hey, I loved you in this movie. Like, it's so easy for people to be like, oh, I love you in this movie, or hey, I saw you in National Geographic. I love this episode. That's all fine and dandy. That's how I recognize you. But I've researched you, and I realize you are a Krav Maga expert, or you go undercover to help rescue sex trafficked children, or you wrote a book on your PTSD after serving Iraq, and that's what I want to talk about. These movie roles, that's all fine, get fun with it, but It's the meat and potatoes of the conversation. They're just a blast. That's on all streaming services, 3 or 4 of them, which I've never heard of. But yeah, then I got contacted by the Dean Blundell Network, which is based up in Ontario. And they have a network of 500,000 podcasters, different stuff. And they reached out and were like, hey, we love what you're doing. Would you like to be a host for us? I said, sure, like whatever. So they did great too, because now I have my built-in audience, not to myself or what I'm, I guess myself, but not only the guests and what their field is, their group of people they attract, but the whole other audience that people up there in Canada doing hockey podcasts. But now they might want to hear about some security stuff or hear about what I did in my career and stuff like that. So it's been great. And doing podcasts like yours, and it's just so cool that people got creative during this whole time. I've never been one to, the worst part of my day is always just like dealing, like talking to people. And I don't mean that I'm talking. I don't mean that in a bad sense. It's more of just kind of, I was never that one that was go out of my way to talk. If I have to advance in catering or do that work stuff, easy peasy. But for me to kind of go out there, I was like, you know what? I'm so bored right now. I'm just going to do it. And it's been great. I just love talking to people and learning. It's been a blast.
Yeah, I have seen that. I mean, personally, I know having conversations has really been a way for me to figure out, situations in my life. It's really therapeutic. Is that something that you're finding?
Yeah, no, it is. And it's funny, no matter who you talk to, we're all dealing with the same stuff. And kind of hearing how they deal with it, whether it's waking up and not looking at their phone for an hour or doing these deep breathing exercises at night before bed, and you're kind of like, oh, I have the same feelings, but I know them differently. When you talk about people talk about stuff like that, you're kind of like, it's so interesting how we're all affected by this, and we're all figuring out different ways to kind of break our own mental funk out of it. And it's just great. I love learning about different topics. Like there's stuff out there where I'm kind of like, I'm going to reach out to this person. I think they should be on my show. I'm going to talk to them and be like, hey, I'd love to have a show because I want to learn. I want to know what it goes into being into wildlife conservation, or how to be a survivalist if your car breaks down on the road. Like what goes into the mental aspect of living in the woods by yourself, or it's just fascinating. Like there's been cool documentary too have come out this year. The one on Netflix about social media, the social dilemma. It's stuff like that where it's like stuff is so fascinating. It's been great. Now I can talk to those people that are part of this, whether they're I got one of the people coming from that do the Night Watcher series on Netflix, one of the actual detectives. Just because I watched it.
I just watched that. It was Night Stalker, yeah.
Night Stalker. So I reached out, and I'm like, oh, this is easy. I'm going to reach out to one of these guys, because obviously prior law enforcement, but talk about the mental aspect of this, what it meant to his family, and the bringing this work home and dropping this caseload off it, not bringing it home. And so I just think when you see stuff like that, I'm like, I got to reach out and talk to these people, because I want to know what else is out there besides what has been on the TV and stuff.
I love it. I think you're doing a great job at taking this as an opportunity to really grow. And I think it can be really easy to get caught up in what we can't do and the opportunities we don't have and the isolation and the loneliness of it all. But it's also really easy to break away from it and actually find a way to just bring so much more that did you have time to do this before COVID?
Here's the thing, and it's funny because I think I've always had the time. I just never valued my time. And I think we talked about before, where you kind of like, before COVID, I would do the workouts. I'm on the road 3 days a year, walk around 20 miles a day. At home, it's like I really value my fitness now and nutrition and working out. And I'm able to, hey, I can work out in a half hour today, but so I can do my 2 hours of podcasting. I could do my online seminars or classwork I got to do. I can do other stuff. And I find value in making the time for the right stuff and cutting out the extra bullshit, whether it's looking at your phone more than you have to, which unfortunately with podcasting, you kind of have to stay in the social net game just to get your message out. But yeah, it's bad. Okay, and people are like, well, you can do this, but get back to the road or normal and stuff. I go, yeah, my number one priority would be my job and what I'm doing. But if I'm day off in a hotel or that I can bring my headphone, microphone, or whatever else, I'm going to do it. I'm just very fortunate that I was able to take the leap of faith and be like, you know what? Because you're always kind of like, well, what if no one listens? And after about the first hour, I'm like, you know what? The fact that I'm even attempting this with no experience whatsoever, I'm just gonna do it. If no one listens, I don't care. I'm still learning. I'm getting value from it. I'm building really cool relationships with people that I never knew I'd be talking to outside of work. And it's been awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it is I've said it before where I'm like, it's like I do this podcast really because like I want to pick people's brains. I mean, I want to get to know my friends better. I want to meet new people. I've built some great relationships through it. And I 100% understand where you're coming from. It's really, really nice to see that you're doing that. And like you said, we like to think that we don't have time, but we actually do. And investing time in your physical and emotional and mental health is incredibly important. And a lot of that also comes from educating yourself through just having interactions with people. What is one of the things that really stands out that you've learned that you didn't expect to ever even have a conversation about?
We kind of talked about earlier, but my biggest thing has always been fear. Fear in the sense, not of, I hate snakes, not like I'm afraid of snakes or tarantulas, or I'm afraid of waking up in a nightmare being chased by a werewolf. Not those fears. The fears of, and I went down this rabbit hole and I actually talked to a Tai Chi master about like fear and stuff. And the biggest thing I got from that, this is back in March, he said that fear is okay. And the fact you're feeling fear, it means you're doing the right thing, and you're feeling that emotion of you're afraid of, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. But the fact you can get to that point means you're on the right path. And for me, it's like, how do I get that feeling every day? And I'm always trying to figure out how do I, whether it's sending that email or cold calling that one press person for someone that probably has no idea what the hell you're talking about, or just the fear of pushing yourself the extra mile, or there's just so much that fear of, man, I haven't talked to this person so long and I feel like an asshole because it's been a year and I should have reached out 6 months ago when COVID keys in my industry. I just didn't reach out. So for me to get that feeling of fear every day is striving through it. That's the biggest thing I can learn. And the other thing too, don't be negative on social media. Don't air out your grievances that, oh, your life sucks, your life is tough. And I think we can all go through situations in our life where it's been tough, and I'm not going to take away from it, but you or I can have, say, a sick parent or a bad day for you or I, our dog dies. But you know what? I'm not going to social media and bitch about, oh, this sucks, it's the worst day ever. Because there's a kid at Dana-Farber right now that's dying of cancer. For me, when I think like that, I'm like, I just hate seeing people in the industry out there posting stuff on social media like, oh, this sucks, or getting into political fights, or threatening to fight people on BobNet. They're just like, what are you people doing? You guys, just the problem. This is the reason we're in this issue we are now. And yeah, so the fear, and don't be an asshole on social media.
Yeah, I love it. It's like direct your energy toward things that are going to help you grow and they're going to benefit the collective, as opposed to keep us in, this like constant battle, which is completely unnecessary and a waste of time. I love it. Well, John, it was amazing talking to you. Congratulations on your podcast, and congratulations on everything that you've learned and all the conversations you've had. Thank you so much. Here are some key takeaways from my conversation with John Guarnieri. 1. It's important to take care of each other, be educated, and to not be afraid to do what it takes to keep everyone safe. 2. It's really easy to get caught up in loneliness. So take time to pursue something new that can help you learn and grow. And 3, make time for the good and cut out all the bullshit. Thank you so much for joining us on The Tour Life. Please remember to rate and review the show on Apple and Spotify to help us elevate these important conversations. Join our community and get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content. And you'll also be the first to hear about upcoming events and giveaways by connecting with us on socials at The Tour Life Podcast and at Q101 Chicago.
It's kickoff time, and Believe podcasts are here to get you ready for the season.
This team, they looked to figure it out, and they said, okay, we got a shot at this thing.
With Believe, you get immediate reactions, game previews, and expert analysis from all 32 teams, plus all of your favorite college teams.
This is a true junior that we're talking about.
Sideline to sideline, end zone to end zone.
The running was good. His size is unbelievable.
Just search Believe. That's BLEAV podcast, wherever you listen.